Hey Faithful, welcome back to the Saloon presented by Cisco. I'm your 49ers team reporter, Briana Jeannel. And in today's episode, we recap the tough loss to the Rams in Week 10 with Larry Krueger. He shares some insight from the game, also gives us a few highlights from that matchup. Later on in this episode, we catch up with Dani Sureck to preview the rematch against the Arizona Cardinals. We talk about everything to expect in Week 11 and what you should be looking out for in that matchup. First off, here's my conversation with Larry. Hey Faithful, welcome back to the Saloon presented by Cisco. My guest today is Larry Krueger, host of The Krug Show, also an amazing voice on KNBR. Larry, thanks for joining me on the podcast again. How are you?
Oh man, thanks for inviting me back. Always enjoy our conversations and I'm looking forward to it.
Yep, definitely. I mean, tough game to recap, but let's break it down. Let's start with Mac Jones as we're looking at the offense. He was 33 of 39 for 319 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 84.6 completion percentage. What stood out to you about the way he commanded the offense? And just, do you think this might be one of his most complete games as a Niner?
You know, I sit in the booth, in the press box next to Todd Husak, the former Stanford quarterback. So now I'm getting a chance to sit there with a former NFL quarterback and college quarterback who sees the field, differently. And so we comment back and forth. The thing that I commented to him about was just how accurate Mac Jones is. Mac Jones is he doesn't look like a guy who would be able to throw from different arm angles and different this and that. He does, and he puts it right on the receiver's hands, and it's uncanny. So I always thought Brock was really accurate, but Jones is as accurate, and the way he's playing right now, 85% completion percentage is an incredible number against a bad defense, against a really good defense. It's astonishing, and then that's coming on the heels of the New York Giant game where he completed 79%. So, this guy set the NCAA record for completion percentage his final year at Alabama, like 77%. It's the highest ever in FBS. And you know what? His accuracy stands out. He is incredibly accurate.
Exactly. And I mean, talk about accuracy. Let's talk about tight end George Kittle. What did you think of that diving tiptoe score? He also caught every pass that went his way. What do you think of the way he kept on carrying the offense, making sure that the team was still in the game even late in the contest?
I mean, the guy has infectious energy and enthusiasm that goes beyond his talent, right? His talent's amazing. He's a great blocker. He's a great receiver. He's a total package player, but it's his attitude and it's his swagger and it's his confidence and his ability. Some people, like an old scout told me, good football players affect themselves. Great football players affect others. And that's what George is. He's a great football player. When he's in the room, at all times. I've talked to his tight end mates about that. He's like, yeah, man, Luke Farrell's like, if George is in the room, he's there. And it's like he's really, really a presence. But he's just a great player all the way around and a great blocker. But more than anything, he's a leader. And he gives this team a swagger and a confidence that they don't have when he's not out there.
Yeah, definitely. I think that swag really carried through even during some of those low moments in Week 10. He kept on making sure that the offense was still in the game. I also want to highlight running back Christian McCaffrey. He just continues to hit milestones every single week. It feels like every Monday we're talking about what new record he's broken. He's now become just the 4th player in NFL history with 7,000 rushing and 5,000 receiving yards. How impressive is it that he's still producing at that level despite some of the offensive woes?
One of the things I didn't know about Christian is just about how his personality, impacts his play. He is the most competitive guy in the room. He doesn't look like it. He's a pretty smiley guy. He doesn't come across as like, oh, he's super this or that, but he is so competitive. He wants to win so bad. He's got like a simmering, he's like simmering on game day. And when you talk to him, he loves football. He loves every aspect of it. And he's just a terrific all around player. I mean, he is their team MVP, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, those were some of the highlights from the game. Ultimately, the 49ers fell to the Rams 42-26. The team hasn't lost back-to-back games, but the Niners also haven't won consecutively in recent weeks. What went wrong in this contest?
Well, just, the Rams are a really great football team. I don't think there's any question about that. Stafford is a future Hall of Famer, and he's in Briana. A young Stafford would have turned it over a lot. But if you notice in this game, when the Niners did get pressure on him, he kept his poise. He threw it away, or he threw it into the turf. He's eliminating. He's always been able to make great plays, but now he understands the importance of eliminating negative plays. So he used to have 20 great plays and 4 negative plays. Now he's got 18 great plays and no negative plays. So I think that aspect of his game, he's become smarter, more patient. I think, a lot of times with NFL quarterbacks, we saw it with Steve Young. Sometimes they get better, and then it's over. Because it's like you're really smart, and then all of a sudden you take a terrible hit and you can't go on any longer. I kind of feel like Stafford is playing the best football of his career, believe it or not, right now. And, that's very disappointing as a 49er fan, because the talk in the summer was he's got back problems and he can't play. And, we all were thinking, we're going to see a lot of Jimmy Garoppolo this year, and the Rams probably are going to struggle because of Stafford's age. Nope. He's 38 and he just keeps rolling. He's an amazing player. He really is. And I would say that was the number one reason. The 49ers offensive line did a nice job against the Rams D line. But Stafford they couldn't stop him. He basically went touchdown to start. Second half, basically they never really stopped him. He's just a terrific player playing at a high level.
Definitely. And speaking of that matchup against Stafford, even after a tough loss, we still saw some flashes from the defense. I want to know, what is your sense of how this young defensive group is handling those growing pains with players coming in and out, and just that increased responsibility on some of the younger guys?
Well, I think in a way they've handled it very well. The Tatum Bethunes, the Ji'Ayir Browns, the Malik Mustafas, even the rookies, guys like Siegel and McKell before he went out, Alfred Collins, CJ West. I think they're handling it well. I think they've got the right kinds of guys. But we saw in this game that if you don't produce pass rush up front, it puts a lot of pressure on the young DBs. And in the fourth quarter of that game, there were some miscommunications. There was some frustration going back and forth between the players. And I think it's going to be really important that Robert Saleh and Daniel Bullock's emphasize the need to play with poise, but when things go wrong, stay together. Because without pass rush, those guys are going to be tested, and at times they're going to be overwhelmed. And it's really important that they just stay together and stay positive.
That's right. Coach Shanahan might have alluded to the fact that the injuries might have caught up to them in this game. Do you agree with that? And where do you think the absences really showed against the Rams?
Well, the injuries up front, that's really it. The 49ers don't really have the ability with any consistency to be able to move the quarterback off the spot without blitzing. Robert Saleh in his first stint with the Niners, had games where he didn't blitz at all. He blitzed 54% of the snaps against Stafford in this game. It's the highest blitz rate the 49ers have had in 9 seasons, and he's doing it out of necessity. So that's really where the big impact is, that instead of being able to get pressure with your front four, the Niners front four, Briana, at the beginning of the year, when they had Yetur Gross-Matos and McKell inside and Huff and Bosa outside, that was an overwhelmingly dangerous pass rushing foursome. And now with Huff back, but no Bosa, no McKell, Yetur Gross-Matos hurt. They're doing the best they can, but they have to scheme up their pressure, and it puts their defensive backfield in much more of a difficult situation. There's not a lot of room for error. So this is just kind of their reality. Saleh's not going to complain about it, and he's going to do a good job at coordinating this thing through the end of the year. But they're going to be challenged to create pressure on the quarterback each and every week.
That's right. Well, the special teams crew came through with a few momentum-changing plays, a big punt return by Sky Moore. What did you think of that run?
Well, I'm enjoying Sky Moore, and we were talking before we went live about Sky, and it's just like, he's such a great dude. I was talking to him the other day in the locker room, and I said, "Hey, man, some guys tiptoe through there. You don't. You don't play this game with any fear at all. You're not the biggest guy. Where does that courageousness come from? And he's like, man, I only know one way to play. And he goes upfield with reckless abandon. And I said, occasionally when you go that hard, you're going to get blown up. And he looked at me and he's like, you know what, man, I have gotten blown up. And he kind of laughed about it. And just the fact, Briana, that he could laugh about, getting, some of the hits that he's taken kind of shows he's got the right mentality for it. If you're afraid, it doesn't work. You have to have that fearless approach. He does. And he's this close to taking one to the house. I think we're going to see it. I don't know if it's this week, but I'm pretty sure that Sky Moore is going to have either an 80, 90, or 100-yard return, and it's going to be a house call, and people are going to be like, we love Sky Moore. He's really close to busting one. If you watch the All-22, there's been 3 examples already where he's gotten one tackle break away from a touchdown. So I do think it's coming. And then, of course, Eddie Pinheiro. I mean, what can we say about Eddie? He's just been absolutely phenomenal. He's given this team such a shot in the arm. And then I think Boyer is a really good special teams coach that was suffering through their struggles early. But he is attention to detail. And as you can tell, they're getting a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better as the season goes. And that's a great sign. So they got the kicker. I think they got the right return guy. I think they got the right coordinator. It's really just about their coverage units making tackles. And if they can do that, I think we're going to see them really evolve and improve as a unit.
I love to hear it. I know the faithful are hungry for maybe a Sky Moore punt return touchdown. That would be really exciting. Now, we've got back-to-back divisional games at home versus the Rams. Now we're on the road against the Cardinals. How do the 49ers bounce back and, help their divisional standings in this contest?
Well, I think they take, a page out of Seattle's book. If you looked at the box score from Seattle, Arizona from this last game, Darnold only threw 12 passes the entire day. They ran the ball like 40 times. And I think with the way Brian Robinson is coming on right now, Briana, and CMC, I think this is a run. And there's a possibility that Brock returns in this game. And I think they're going to want to take some of the pressure off of him. I think this is a run-heavy game plan where the Niners use a lot of Robinson, a lot of CMC, and really run it aggressively at the Cardinals. And I think a great win here would be the 49ers having 30 to 40 runs, running it effectively, and really kind of discovering that they can win a different way. It doesn't have to be through the pass, even though they have a really good passing offense. I think this is the game that they kind of rekindle their running dominance.
If it's one thing this 49ers offense knows how to do, it's activate that run game. I'm excited to see this matchup. Larry, thank you so much for joining us, recapping that Week 10 game, looking ahead to Arizona. I appreciate you always.
Anytime, Briana. Appreciate it.
Now we're going to rewind the tape a little bit, and I sat down with Ji'Ayir Brown for a pre-game conversation before the 49ers faced the Rams. Here's my conversation with Ji'Ayir. All right, faithful, this is your 49ers team reporter, Briana Jeannel, sitting with Ji'Ayir Brown right before the 49ers versus Rams Week 10 contest. Ji'Ayir, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Excited to be here. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, Ji'Ayir, it's Week 10. Just how are you feeling physically, mentally at this point in the season?
Physically, I'm feeling great. Ready to ball out, man. Still got a lot I want to accomplish this season. A lot of goals ahead. Mentally feeling great. Got the guys. We rallied around. Even with the loss of our peers, we're still fighting. We're still going. Still have so much belief. So I'm in a great mood. I'm in great spirits. You
and Malik had a great game against the Giants last week. What clicked for you in that matchup?
Just, man, trying to go out there every week and be better than I was last week, never satisfied, always leaving room for growth, because that's the biggest room in the world. So just going out there trying to execute my job every week.
Yeah, and it's year 3 for you now. Time has flown by.
I'm an old head.
Time has flown by. The guys look to you as one of the vets. How has that growth process been for you?
It's been dope, man, because I was one of those younger guys who came in and kind of had like a vet mindset to them. Even though I had a lot of vets around me, they always, treated me like a vet. So to actually be a vet now in year 3 and have a lot of younger guys in the room, it's dope, man. It's pretty dope, man, because the young guys, there's a lot of respect between me and guys in the room, and we enjoy each other out there and we have fun.
That's so good. I love hearing that. Now, some of the older vets on the team and, of course, the fan base know and love Coach Saleh, but for you, this is your first year working with him. What's a new perspective he's given you about finding success with this defense?
His IQ for the game is sharp, man. It's very sharp. One of the best minds I've been around. And I've been around some good DCs and good coordinators. But yeah, Salah's IQ, man, is nothing like it, man. It's definitely big ups to him, man. He definitely got a feel for the game. He knows the game. He knows what he's looking for, and he knows how to call it. Yeah.
Right, that Rams duo of Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams has been one of the best in football. What are the real keys to defending them?
Both of those guys are great players. Devontae's been doing it for a long time at a high level. Puka, a little younger, but he's been doing it for a while at the high level. And both of them has great hands, great routes, great feel for the game. A lot of respect for those guys, man. But we have talent on our side as well. We have guys that can play, and just as much respect goes out to them. I know it's respect to us as well.
Can you tell me just how unique it is to go up against an opponent that you know so well versus a team that's outside of the division?
Y'all know each other. That's the uniqueness of it. You get to learn the other guys more and more. You play them twice a year, every year. So you get to learn the routes that Puka likes to run. You get to learn the routes that Matthew Stafford likes to throw. You get a feel for each other, and which makes the game harder, honestly, than rather meeting a new team where you don't really have a feel for them and how they operate, and you kind of gradually grow through that throughout the game. From the first snap, we're going to know exactly who each other are. And that's what makes the game interesting.
Joining me now on The Saloon is Arizona Cardinals team reporter Dani Sureck. Dani, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited for the second matchup.
Both teams are looking to bounce back in the division. Both the 49ers and the Cardinals will be rolling into State Farm Stadium looking to shake off a loss. But before we get into this game, let's recap a little bit of Week 10. I mean, the Cardinals fell to the Seahawks in a tough loss, but what were some of the bright spots in that game?
Offensively, they struggled against a really good defensive front in Seattle. And while the Cardinals knew that Seattle had one of the best defenses in the league going into the game, didn't really give themselves a lot of chances to combat that. And that's just partially because Seattle's defense is so good. There's absolutely things this offense wants to be better at when that comes to pad level, timing, execution on the offensive line, quarterback Jacoby Brissett getting the ball out faster, and receivers making more of those contested catches. On defense, it started with a bit of bad luck. Just an explosive play, almost 70-yard touchdown catch for JSN on Seattle's first drive. And cornerback Garrett Williams was toe-to-toe, stride for stride with JSN and just got tripped up on his foot. And then 2 strip sack fumbles returned for touchdowns by Seattle's defense just put the Cardinals in a hole that they were unable to dig themselves out of. Bright spots. Cardinals forced 3 turnovers, and complimentary football put points on the board after 2 of them, although in a game that was just such a struggle start to finish, not a lot of bright spots. But if you're looking for some, that would be one of them, and just the fight from this team. We've seen that consistently every year under head coach Jonathan Gannon is a team that does not quit, plays very physical, plays very hard, regardless of the score or the situation. And that was on display. The Cardinals ended up coming back, almost putting it within a 2-score game, despite being down 35-0 at one point. They're absolutely looking to bounce back at home, another divisional opponent in the 49ers, in a game that they also had a chance of winning.
Both the 49ers and the Cardinals are both fighting to establish some sort of consistency. How are the Cardinals shifting from the Seahawks to the Niners this week?
With a game like that, they have no choice but to quickly review the tape, learn about the corrections that need to be made, and flush it. That's just the best thing to do. And what we've seen from this Cardinals team is their ability to do that. Look, the Cardinals set a record they didn't want to set, being the first team since the merger to lose 3 straight games in a walk-off field goal. And the 49ers being one of those teams, Seattle being another. Yet every week the Cardinals have stuck in it, with the exception of the game against the Seahawks. And the win in Dallas for Arizona, every game had been a 1-score game, coming down to the final few plays. This isn't an Arizona team that's consistently getting blown out of the water. They have lost to some really good teams. So I expect them to have that same mindset as they shift things into the 49ers, and things will look different. I mean, really for both teams from that first matchup in Week 3. So I'll be curious to see how those things kind of shake out and how Arizona gets back on track after that loss against Seattle.
In Week 3, the 49ers faced Kyler Murray, but a lot has changed since that matchup. Now the 49ers are gearing up to face quarterback Jacoby Brissett. What have you taken away from his performance so far, and what should the 49ers expect against him?
Brissett is as experienced as backup quarterbacks come. He's been in the league for a decade. He's had some really good things on tape, and one of those things has been ball security. And up until those 2 sack fumbles returned for touchdowns by the Seahawks, Brissett had only thrown 1 interception in his 3 games as a starter. He now has 4 games under his belt as a Cardinal, and something Brissett is really good at, staying in the pocket. Even if he is under constant pressure, has a hand in his face, gets hit and takes a sack, he gets right up the next play. He has no hesitation, staying in the pocket that following play, waiting for that read, waiting for the right time for his receivers to break the routes to get the ball out quickly. That's something that Brissett has done a really nice job of. And the team takes note of that. Wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. said last week at his locker that when he sees his quarterback taking hits, getting knocked to the ground, and getting back up, that energizes him and the rest of their team to be aggressive and to fight on every single play. That's something Brissett's done a nice job of. Kyler Murray hurt his foot shortly after that first matchup against the 49ers, missed some games, and then was placed on IR. So last Sunday against Seattle was the first of the minimum 4 games for Murray to miss with that injury.
Now, speaking of Arizona's weapons, Trey McBride's been a really consistent weapon in this Cardinals offense. How do you see him performing against a Niners defense that's rotating through some younger defenders?
This has got to be a huge game for Trey McBride. He is the most reliable weapon for this Cardinals offense. Consistently brings the ball in. He's got sticky hands. He's got a huge catch radius, and he refuses to go down on first contact. It takes multiple defenders to bring McBride down. And you can see that he's been giving it his all, because a lot of times he'll go onto the sideline after a long drive, and you can see he's taking a knee. He's having to catch his breath. He is really putting his body on the line, garnering a lot of defensive attention and still finding ways to create success. The fact that the 49ers are without one of the best linebackers in the league in Fred Warner does provide an advantage for this Cardinals offense they're going to have to take advantage of. McBride is one of the most well-rounded tight ends. He has the full route tree. He can block, which is something he's had to do a little bit more of because the Cardinals are without their 2 top blocking tight ends, and Tip Ryman and Travis Vokolek done for the year with injuries from a couple of weeks ago. And while they won't be facing each other, I am excited for this quote-unquote matchup between 2 of the best tight ends, if not the 2 best tight ends in the league, with McBride and George Kittle. And hopefully they can have a little fun with each other. I know that McBride was the highest paid tight end this offseason for about 20 whole seconds before Kittle beat him by pennies there. And I know they joked about it when they met up at Tight End University. So I know they won't be going toe-to-toe per se on the field at the same time, but I do think that's a fun matchup to watch between 2 of the best at their position right now.
On the topic of that blocking game, there's a lot of similarities in this matchup. Both the 49ers and the Cardinals will want to establish the run and set the tone early. How do the running backs like Amari and possibly Bam Knight find success with this Cardinals offense?
The run game has been a struggle all year for the Cardinals. Even when they had James Conner, their starter, healthy to start the year, it wasn't jumping off the page the way that people were expecting, mostly given the consistency with personnel in the offensive line, the offense as a whole, and how good the Cardinals were at running the ball last year. They're one of the top teams with a run offense, and that was a struggle even with Conner. And then you lose Conner, that season-ending injury in San Francisco right at the start, the second half, and then the following week, Cardinals have to place second running back on that depth chart, Trey Benson, on injured reserve, and he has not played a game since. So the Cardinals have really had to go through the depth chart and then really go deep in that running backs room. And it's been a struggle. There have been flashes, and that's something that Bam Knight provides, is he's got a little bit of that twitchiness, and he can move the ball forward. Doesn't necessarily always want to go lateral before he's going north and south. So that's been good to see. And Amari DiMercato is somebody who is incredibly strong as your third down back, very good at pass protection, and he's also a threat really in the passing game. He's shown some nice things, put up some nice yardage numbers from the line of scrimmage. So that's something that the Cardinals are going to want to establish. You always want to establish the run, establish dominance, wear down the defense, open up the rest of the playbook. It has been a struggle, similar to the 49ers in a sense, for the Cardinals to do that on a consistent basis, though. And that's something they're going to look to do every single week.
Now, we all remember week 3. It was a really close game, and the 49ers managed to get a win with a last-second field goal. Do you expect week 11 to be another tight game?
You hope so, right? You hope so, and that it's not so lopsided. I do think that this is going to be a matchup. It's always a good matchup between these teams, and they're similar in a lot of ways of not having the starting quarterback, right? Being out some key defenders and some of the injuries that these teams have faced. But it's always a tough challenge. Both of these teams are known for being physical and being tough. Kyle Shanahan is known for being one of, if not the best coaches in the league when it comes to disguising what their offense is doing. And that's a tough challenge to defend. And then you guys have someone like Christian McCaffrey, who, when you look at the numbers, might not be as quote unquote dominant as years past, right? Running the rock, but he is just as much of a threat in the passing game as well. So both teams have some similar struggles and adversities that they're working towards, but it's always a good match. Hopefully for Cardinals fans, they can come out on top this time around, but I am expecting it to be a good fight for both teams.
Finally, Dani, give us some insight here. Who are a few names on the Cardinals that 49ers fans should be looking for that could be difference makers this weekend?
First, I would say Trey McBride, who we touched on. I think when you're looking at advantages and disadvantages for both teams, he already is such an advantage for the Cardinals, and for a bit of a banged up 49ers defense, at least in that linebackers room, that would be a name I would keep an eye on. Defensively, cornerback Garrett Williams. He did not play in that first matchup. He was on IR with a knee injury. He sustained week 2. He's come back. Last year, Williams was ranked one of the top slot corners by Pro Football Focus. And Williams has a great ability, not just because of his physical skill set, but his mental strength as well, to not just be inside, but to also move outside. And that's a position room the Cardinals have been hit pretty hard in terms of injuries. So I would expect to see Williams kind of move around some inside and outside. That's what we saw in Seattle. And he plays tight, clean, disciplined football. So when the 49ers have got a receiver like Ricky Pearsall, who went off against the Cardinals the first time around, I'm excited for that matchup for the Cardinals defense, is to have Williams back on the field, because when you have him out there, it's a trickle-down effect of how defensive coordinator Nick Rawlis can utilize his other playmakers in unique ways. Someone like safety Budda Baker, and maybe they have him blitz a little bit more, move around the field. Having Williams on the field absolutely gives this defense a leg up from what they had that first matchup when he wasn't able to play.
Well, Dani, a lot to look for in this rematch, this time in Arizona. Dani, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me on. I'm looking forward to the game.
All right, faithful, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of The Saloon presented by Cisco. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, SiriusXM, and your favorite podcast platform. The Week 11 matchup against the Cardinals airs at 1:05 Pacific time on Fox. We'll see you there, and go Niners.